I'm Steven.
And I'm Spencer. Welcome to Ragnarokast, your podcast for all things marketing and MarTech.
Hello, everyone. We're the co-CEOs of Ragnarok.
Hi there, and welcome to the second season of the Ragnarokast. I'm Spencer.
And I'm Steven.
We may have already said that in the pre-recorded intro, but that's okay. I want to wish everyone a happy New Year.
Wait. Hold on.
Steven, you were supposed to troll.
It's December. How is it the New Year yet?
No, it's January.
Ah, right.
See, I'm so cold.
Boy, these release dates really are really confusing. When does this come out?
We're going to get some unintentional comedy from Steven's internet connection, which I thoroughly look forward to.
Hey, I am 81% uploaded and counting, so.
Okay. And I apologize if my mic falls over. I have Stephen King's Under the Dome here keeping my microphone because I probably got this mic off of Wish, and it's about to collapse at any moment. With that said, welcome, Neha.
Thanks, Spencer. For everyone listening, Happy New Year. As we mentioned, this is pre-recorded, but you're going to listen to this in Jan. So hope you all had a nice New Year celebration. Quick intro. I'm Neha. I'm a PM at Mixpanel. It's an analytics solution. I lead our area on how can we help users like yourselves answer more questions. And the reason I'm here is for the last 1 year or so, Mixpanel has been getting into marketing analytics, and I've been leading that effort. But prior to that, I spent 5 years as a consultant. For those of you who make fun of consultants, it's actually a lot of fun besides actually being spoofed by others. But I spent 5 years doing growth strategy with them, and I worked across multiple locations. Excited to be here and speak to you all about analytics and marketing analytics.
I noticed you have an MBA from Wharton. That's UPenn, right?
That is. I was on the East Coast for a long time before I made my way west. Still getting used to the side of the coast, but yes.
Our friend Steven here is in Philly right now.
Yeah. Woo woo.
Philly is an amazing city. I'm so envious of you, Steven.
It's pretty cool, but it's pretty damn cold right now. So, in January.
Every time, Steven, you do a weird face, it freezes for like 5 seconds. Okay.
I think we can get a lot of memes
down
off
on
this
the
call.
shenanigans. Okay, first of all, before we jump into today's topic, I got to try this out because I bought this just for this. Oh God, it's too bright. How do I look now? Do I look too bright?
Hey, Casper.
Is that good? There we go. I'm going to keep it at this lower setting. Look, I could change the... Let's do the middle. Nah, there we go. Okay. Now I've got my podcast ring light set up. All right, everyone. Here's today's topic that I remembered off the top of my head. As marketers, we all know it can take some convincing to sway the flow of your company's pocketbooks. You'll need evidence to show why you need to take advantage of the latest and greatest trends. Really, though, the numbers don't lie. Semicolon. They're your crystal ball to paving the way to your company's new marketing strategy. Today, we're chatting with Mixpanel on the past, present, and future of analytics and how those numbers can guide you to meet your goals. Before we get into topic number one, quick little history. How do we get hooked up with Mixpanel? We had done some stuff with Mixpanel, kind of like, feeling our way around. Wait, no, don't use that. Don't feel a way around.
Well, you're not just feeling your way around.
Let's just say
SaaS platforms.
Yeah. We were feeling our way some different analytics platforms, and I was at the Braze conference in 2019, I believe. I think it was called LTR back then and not Forge.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to meet Scott Singerman, who was the partner lead at Mixpanel. He had just moved up to New York, and he had only been there for like a month or so. And I didn't really have any intention of going hard with Mixpanel, like doing a whole partnership. But TBH, Scott and I we hit the happy hour at the end of the conference pretty hard. And so we were like, yeah, man, I love you, man. Let's partner. Ragnarok and Mixpanel forever. And so like 4 or 5 years, or yeah, 4 years later, almost 5, we're here now doing a podcast. So Stephen, do you want to tee us up for this topic number 1?
Topic number 1, Mixpanel shift, duration, 5 minutes. So Mixpanel has been working to make this shift from product analytics to mixed marketing analytics. Can you walk us through, Neha, why this transition is happening and how it's addressing the demand for a complete data in the industry?
Sure. I will say I won't be able to match the same amount of energy levels, but let's talk about one, what's the shift that's happening? And then why Mixpanel is jumping onto this shift. Maybe the best way is actually to start with an example, right? Like, so we were speaking with a customer. We had both the customers using Mixpanel, the marketing team and the product team. And the product team talks about how their conversion rates from sign up to implementation have been the lowest they've been seeing. And so this is a B2B customer. It's a PLG motion customer. And they were looking at implementation rates. They were like, this is the lowest conversions we're seeing from sign up to implementation. Nothing has changed. We have no idea why. On the other hand, the marketing team is celebrating, saying this is the highest ever signups they've been seeing. Signups are like blooming, loads of signups coming in. And so there was one team that's celebrating. There's another team that's just like, this is not converting. What's the point of so many signups if we can't convert it, right? And the fun fact is, it took us a few months to figure out what's happening and like, is it a tooling issue? Is it some other issue? And we realized the quality of signups that they were getting from the marketing effort that was happening was not great. That had changed. They had shifted the kind of customers they were targeting. And these new types of signups that were coming up were actually not the ideal customer profile, and which is why they were converting much lesser. And so it brings me to this interesting place where the problem was two teams were independently looking at their metrics. One was just looking at signups, one was just looking at conversions post sign up. And there was a mismatch over there, right? Like they were not looking at throughout, like marketing team was not looking, are we bringing in good quality signups that are also converting? And I think that's one of the shifts we've been seeing a lot with in the industry with like the PLG motion, with growth teams coming in, where teams are no longer siloed. Teams actually work together and own the metrics, the same metrics. So everybody wants to bring in quality signups and then can convert them. Versus marketing is just like, well, we got 20,000 signups, and then product is like, well, conversion rates have gone down, which does not help. So that's one of the big shifts that the industry has been seeing, and that's maybe the bandwagon that we've also been jumping onto, where we're just like, these teams no longer are siloed. You actually need to be able to like join the metrics right from awareness, acquisition, retention, engagement, all the way. So you can say, well, we've got the marketing dollars have actually brought in quality conversions, quality users who you can long-term rely on. So I'd say that's been the biggest reason why we've jumped into. And the fun fact is, I think when we decided to jump into it, we realized a lot of our user base were actually already marketers who had started bridging these gaps. It's also pretty evident because if I ask you right now who owns the website, who owns an onboarding experience, I don't think answers are ever going to be, well, it's either a product team or a marketing team. It's generally joint ownerships. So this whole acquisition experience has become more of a joint ownership now, where you're trying to overall look at common metrics. So yeah, that's been one of the biggest reasons why we've jumped into this boat. We were already looking at post-acquisition funnels. We just started also going into the pre-acquisition part of it and looking at it overall.
So we've been seeing that shift as well with a lot of our clients in both the kind of ownership of, again, previously marketing owned all of the marketing automation tooling, which might include things like your in-app notifications and your push notifications. And that would shift away from product because it would give them a little bit more scale. And then we saw product kind of brought back into it, where now it's sort of a joint ownership of the market automation tool as well as, sort of the web properties or app properties. And now that even more of these tools have built-in features like, you can dynamically control content on the application through like the marketing automation platform or through the CDP, it even adds more capability into the marketer's hands to actually power some of the experiences. So I think it's a combination of tools like yourselves and others giving more capability in the hands of marketers, and product folks realizing that it's very difficult for them to drive like a significant amount of change If it's just them focusing on it, the more buy-in they get across the org, the more, quote unquote, bodies thrown at the problem. And that's kind of helped accelerate a lot of that, PLG type organization, or even just any org being able to kind of capitalize on just more minds in the room and hands on the keyboard, so to speak, to drive a lot more of the incrementality and solve some of these problems together.
Yeah, if I had to give my view on it, I think it's a very symbiotic relationship now, you see, where product obviously wants to know where you're getting demand from so that you can build for it, because what's the point of building a tool for people who don't want it? But on the other hand, product, or I wouldn't call it product, I'll call it post-acquisition. That's where you actually start seeing which customers are actually seeing value. They go through the whole funnel, or they see engagement and retention. And you want to push that information back to marketers so that they're the ones they're targeting with these automation tools, etc. So it's a both-sided relationship versus saying, well, we just look at sign-ups and we just look at conversions. You want to pass that information loop continuously. And with all these tools, like you mentioned, coming in especially, you have a lot of data piping in and out. It's just how well do you actually tie all this data together and use it to get the best return.
So as part of that shift to be more focused on the marketing team, is there now more kind of...
I think I lost you in yes. His internet cut off, Spencer. Maybe you know what he was trying to
leave it in. Don't edit that at all. Okay. So now that we have Steven back.
Here I am. I'm back.
Here he is.
Hello.
I got to turn teleprompter. You got to pay more for the teleprompter? Anyway, Google Analytics. Google has deprecated their old Universal Analytics and has shifted to GA4. Neha, can you break down why Mixpanel sees this as a big deal?
Yeah. I guess most of us have used Google Analytics at some point or the other. I think it's safe to say 95% of the people have used Google Analytics, right? And we're so tuned to what Google's taught us for the last 20 years, its page views, its sessions, and all of it. Right now, there's a huge change. Even Google, with moving to GA4, there's this whole talk about event-based analytics. And for something you've learned for 20 years or known about it, it's a huge change to say, well, we're moving from pages and sessions to events. Now, coming from Mixpanel, maybe it's secondary nature to me. I talk event-based analytics, but for everybody else, this is brand new. And there's a lot of unlearning to do. You have to stop thinking about pages and sessions and start understanding what events are. And that's a very big change. I think the change is as big as earlier we all had static website pages. And so you could say, well, this is the page view I want to count. But now in the same page, you have multiple clicks that you can have. And each of that is considered an event. So you can do obviously a lot more analytics with event-based analytics, but it's a change and people have to think about this change. So that's been the big deal. And I think when people are making this move, it's a great time for them to rethink, well, we're now learning about event-based analytics. Are there other tools over there who potentially thought of event-based analytics more broadly? And that's where I think the timing is essential, because change is hard. I don't think I like change. I don't think any of us here likes change. And when you're changing a tool now, it's a good time to think which is the tool I should go for. And that's why when we are jumping on the bandwagon now and pushing this message out to users, well, if you are anyways making the switch from GA3 or UA to GA4, it's a good time for you to evaluate tools and see which one best fits your use case, and accordingly make the move. Because once you make a change, whether you like it or not, you're going to stick with it for a few years at least. So why not think now before you make the change and then jump to the right event-based analytics? All the tools are moving event-based, whether it's GA or Adobe. So might as well see which one best fits your use case.
Yeah, that's a good point. Neha, also, I noticed one of the restrictions with GA4 is how many things like custom dimensions and other types of elements that you can even track before you have to move on to the to the paid plan. So the value of the free plan has kind of declined tremendously, even though it's in sort of an event-based model. Whereas a Mixpanel, that's just all included, right? However many events, however many properties, or quote unquote, we'll call them, we want to use the GA terms, dimensions. It's all sort of built natively into the platform. So I think there's just a ton more value that you're able to offer there without even adding on all the other bells and whistles that Mixpanel has to offer comparatively between the two.
That is true. And it's funny how you mentioned dimensions. I realized this terminology has been a big shift for people, where GA used to call things hits and conversions, and now they call it events. I think similarly, it's dimensions and properties. So that itself shows the amount of learning change. It's the same metrics, but you just need to know newer terminology to get it right. But to your point also, like the free plan matters, right? Like if you're trying a tool, you want to know how much can you get out of it before you commit to it. I think the advantage maybe for us is we've always been a PLG tool where it's like you see value, you try it out, and only then you commit. And so we've been tailored for that. And that just helps us. Like we're tailored for you to see value. Like we're purely an analytics tool. We're not an advertising tool. We're not anything else. It's like you see value in this analytics you get, and then you commit. Try everything that you want. And then when your volume grows, we benefit from it as well. And together we pay more.
Right.
I like the phrase dimensions or the terminology because I've been watching a lot of like the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, and there's a lot of like multiverse stuff going on there. So this is like the marketing multiverse. It's really just opening us up into new dimensions.
Whoa, man.
Whoa, man. So, Neha, with all this change that's going on, how can brands and just generally anybody that's using GA4 or Mixpanel or other similar tools, how can they stay on top of things in the analytics world?
I guess there are a few parts, right? One, as scary as it sounds, like embrace event analytics. I mean, I've seen this now. I had a call even earlier today. We speak with a lot of customers and they just like, we just want to repeat these metrics that we've seen in GA3 or UA. Build the same metrics out there, right? Like, I'm like, expand your horizons, expand your dimensions, do more than what you can. So just embrace event analysis. It'll take a while by the time you get used to it and you can do more. But for now, just start. I guess it's a good start to build the same metrics you're used to, but you can do a lot more with it. So don't be scared about it. I'll say that's the first one. The second one, maybe we've spoken about it a few times now, but look beyond vanity metrics of like page views and sessions and start looking at the whole user's journey. Like the user doesn't care if it's the marketing team that's serving them or the product team serving them or the customer success team. They actually care about the end experience that they get. So the sooner, I think a lot of teams have started making that switch where you stopped having like team functional ownership. You literally have a customer experience ownership. But the sooner companies move towards that and tie that analytics, the user journey together, the sooner they will start seeing a lot of value and the users will start seeing a lot of value. The last one, which I will call out is, I think all of us as analytics users know this, but data in equal to data out. So if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage analytics. So that's the one thing which I will call out as you think about the tool or even your analytics strategy in general. It's maybe the most grunt work thinking about the right data structure and thinking about whether the tool is giving me all the data I need, but that's the most rewarding experience once you have the right data in. So look into like whether ad blockers matter to you, whether sampling matters to you. Like look at some of those when you're making the switch, because that's going to affect the numbers you see. That's going to affect how you think about marketing budget spend as well. So just spend more time on that. I'll say those are the three things which I would call out.
So Neha, you mentioned a lot of garbage in, garbage out, having a really good schema as part of that structure. Again, it is grunt work, but it's extremely valuable. And also, as I like to say, build your schema for the lowest common denominator, i.e. the person that you will hire 4 years from now that will be able to easily understand and jump right into the data, as opposed to trying to have to navigate a labyrinthine, weird naming structure that doesn't really make any sense. So this also kind of comes back to like how you actually connect those data and events to other tools, right? Because it's not just how we collect it in Mixpanel, it's also how we send it out to our marketing automation tools, to our CDPs, to our data warehouses, and any other thing, our MMP tools. So when you kind of think about the entire tech stack and Mixpanel's place in that, where do you kind of see yourself as the intersection there beyond just being a, kind of numbers and graphs type tool?
That's a great point. And I think there are two big parts to it, right? Like there's one, like you said, you want to prep the tool in a way that a person who comes in 4 years later, 5 years later can use it. And that's a huge aspect about data governance, and data comprehension, which is not just about today, but also about the future. And I won't touch too much about that, but I think that's one key thing which you have to look at as a tool for the future. Where do you have enough governance controls? And that's something, I guess, as a product analytics tool, we generally have a bunch around. But the other part is the more interesting one, which is the tech stack. And I'll be pretty honest, I think marketers have a much larger tech stack than I've seen product folks have. And there are multiple parts to it, right? There is data in, there's the analytics tool in the middle, and then there's data out. And on the data in, there are just so many different tools out there. You obviously have The regular tracking you might have for your website, etc. But then if you have a mobile app, you potentially have an MMP that you're also using for tracking. You must be using some email marketing tool, which also is sending you data, and you want to look at how many emails are being opened or not. You have ad networks from which you're getting ad data around how much cost is being spent, clicks, impressions. And then you have CRM tools, which tell you about your users, right? So there are just so many of these tools which first give you data in that you want to analyze. And I think one of the big parts about Mixpanel is you can build all those fancy graphs and charts only if you can get the data first in a structured way to do that. And joining data from so many tools is quite an effort to join it correctly. Like you want to get things at the user level, right? Like there's one user, even if you're getting data in from 5, 6 different tools, how do you map it to the right user? How do you figure out which are dimensions of the user, which are actions of the user? So the data model, I will say, is maybe one of the biggest advantages of a tool like Mixpanel that can join data from your 7 or 8 tools together, get it structured in a way that you can build the charts and visualizations, which I'll say is the easier part versus joining the data. And then there's the next part, like you were talking about, like eventually marketers want to engage with users. Like you're doing all this analysis such that you know which users should I go engage with? Who should I send maybe another campaign? Who should I send another message out? Like which cohorts of users do I target? And I think that's the other part. Once you do this analysis, it's not just, okay, is it going up or down? You want to know which users are actually seeing benefit from it or which users are dropping off from the funnel. You want to be able to create cohorts of those users, target them. And then after you target them, get that data back in, like did these users, how many of them engaged with them or not? And I think that targeting, like I think Spencer brought it up earlier, like 4 years back at a Braze conference, where like Braze is one of those tools which actually helps you target users using cohorts you've potentially built in Mixpanel or any other analytics tools. So it's a full circle, and we play in the middle where we help you join all the data, build the visualizations, and then figure out the cohorts you want to analyze in, but then also get back data and to see of those cohorts that you targeted, how many did well, how many didn't do well, etc. So you can actually see how every effort that you put in, whether it's a first engagement or a re-engagement, how that's affecting your overall marketing analytics strategy.
Yeah, and I would say that cohorting, one of the personalization initiatives we build for a lot of our clients is a sort of microsegmentation strategy, and just the ability to quickly generate those cohorts and be able to actually track their journey through both a control and a treatment group, and be able to see the differences in their behavior through Mixpanel, as well as the differences in their conversion rates over time. So 7 days from their entry into that cohort, 14 days later, 21 days later. It's really powerful to have kind of a comprehensive understanding of how much influence are we having from whatever multi-channel program or ad network that we're plugging into in order to generate more activity for that cohort. So definitely one of my favorite features of the platform.
We've been talking a lot about like various third-party platforms, but how does first-party data figure into all this? Where does Mixpanel fit in?
I think I'll just start with clarifying that I think a lot of people, including me maybe for a long time, didn't realize the difference between first-party and third-party data. And maybe I can give a good example of where, like you were earlier talking about using Disney plus Hotstar to watch the Marvel universe, right? I think if Disney plus Hotstar wanted to track your movement as a company, it is first-party tracking for them because they're only tracking how you're navigating their own website. But if, say, Facebook or Twitter wanted that data on how Spencer is navigating Disney plus Hotstar, that is third-party data because it's not Facebook or Twitter's website. It is Disney plus Hotstar's website. So that's just one thing which I'll clarify. And I think that brings us to the thing where we've always been, like Mixpanel has always been a first-party tracking. Like I think if you use our SDK, it's always a first-party tracking. We only track for you your own website, how people use your own website. We don't give the data to anyone else, and nobody else can use Mixpanel's SDK on your website to get information. So that's one thing. Now, obviously, I guess Europe is the best place to always look at it because they are on the forefront of anything privacy or first-party related. There is obviously some interpretation there where even first-party tracking at times say like, is this actually first-party or not? And that's when the question comes on consent. If a user consents, then you're allowed to track it. If not, you're not, right? So I'll say that's where we play in the middle. Now, the good part is this is when you're trying to do client-side tracking or using an SDK. But there are non-client-side routes. You could use server-side tracking, which is all first-party and overcomes anything to do with tracking cookies or any of it. So there are other ways for tracking, whether it is server side or hitting an ingestion API directly, which gets you around anything to do with even the concept or thinking of, is this first party or third party? So data in is core to us, and I think we spend a lot of time thinking about it, because unless you get the data in, like we said, you can't get good analytics that comes out.
That makes a lot of sense.
So if I'm gazing into the crystal ball here, where do you see the analytics industry going? At least, 2024, maybe 2025. Are there any cool trends or tech stuff that you see out there that we should keep an eye on?
Maybe two things. One, since we've spoken about it, event-based analytics is becoming pretty normalized now. Like obviously with marketers is maybe the first place where it's jumped in, where Adobe and GA also moving towards it. Like event analytics is becoming more than, it started with product, but it's gone to marketing, and we expect this to go beyond just product and marketing. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. And event is basically just any action with a timestamp. Cooler trend, which I think all of us should look out for, is data warehouse. I think anyone who's looking into analytics, like data warehouses are becoming the new normal in most companies, irrespective of their size. And what that means is you can start joining a lot more data together, having a lot more information in one place. Information is power, right? Like once you have so much information in one place, we can actually start joining data, different kinds of data together, and doing a lot more with that in terms of either targeting users, getting their information, figuring out how to engage with them across their whole journey, etc. So I'd say those are maybe the two things which I would really look out for.
Yeah, and especially with, I know Mixpanel supports like a SQL editor, and it has all kinds of ways that you can kind of interact with it as if you would a data warehouse. But of course, you're not spending, thousands of dollars in the compute costs because it's already included within the platform. So it's definitely one of those areas where picking the tool that you get the most value from makes the most sense, where maybe you don't necessarily need to use to go through and write a query against a data warehouse, especially since you won't be able to visualize it as well. But also, if you are able to join the data from the data warehouse within the product analytics tool, you get just as much value from it, and you're not, incurring those compute costs at the same rate. So I think it's the way that you're describing it, Neha, is entirely where the future's at. And then certainly on the event tracking side, I think as we really start to see more of the shift on this type of concept and having people think about events, not just from conversion standpoints, but also from behavioral indicators of what I need the person to do next as like a next best action or a milestone setting. I think the product analytics tool becomes even more critical to that, again, with that ability for us to create cohorts at certain drop-off points and things like that, which is not very easy to do outside of the capability within the tool.
Yep, I think that's exactly where we're also trying to go towards. Like, we do not want our users to do SQL. Like, we're a self-serve tool, and self-serve tool comes with, we don't want you to write code. We want everybody to be able to use Mixpanel. It's not helpful if just 2 users in a 100-people company use Mixpanel. Then you might as well just set up like SQL or Tableau. We want the 100 people to use Mixpanel, because that's when analytics actually gets democratized. So yeah, even if the warehouse trend is obviously really helpful for everyone from a data collection one, but how you access the data, we still hope that people can access it without having to write SQL. And that's what we're building for. And we actually have a few things already out there with our warehouse templates, etc. But yeah, I think everyone in analytics can jump onto this bandwagon and figure out how do you use data in one place.
That's awesome. Yeah, and actually one of my favorite features of the different like dashboards that you can create on there is there's just a text box. So you can just write a comment about like, this chart on the right means this, and it's just much easier for the person to, again, quickly get context into what does this thing even mean that I'm looking at. And I don't have to fill in like a 250 character limit, description of it. It's just right there in the way that they digest the data.
All right, everybody. So to try to wrap this up relatively on time, a little bit late, quick recap. So we learned about Mixpanel's shift from purely product marketing into a more mixed marketing strategy, which we've always been behind here at Ragnarokast. So we're very excited to see that kind of come about in a more official way. How Mixpanel and other marketers out there have dealt with the shift to GA4 and away from the original Universal Analytics. We've heard about some trends we think we'll be seeing next year. And also we learned about how Mixpanel feels about first-party data versus third-party data. And in fact, more things are first-party data than we initially realized.
And don't forget, we learned how awesome Neha is.
That's true. Should have started with that. Neha, thank you for joining us. Thank you for dealing with our technical difficulties and our silliness.
It was fun looking at Steven's frozen screenshot. I will say that. I don't know if people get to see it, but yes.
Jalen, we gotta put that somewhere. It's just like the whole time. In fact, you can just dub over Steven's whole thing. Because you are watching, because you are listening, you must also subscribe to us on your audio platform of choice. Follow us on LinkedIn. The other platforms are also there. We have 4 followers on Instagram or something like that. My dad likes to post. LinkedIn is probably the place to catch us, or YouTube. YouTube we're doing pretty well on. Until then, I hope you had a Ragnarok New Year.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.